give me a recap of your race from Castle Hill down to here, the highlights and the lowlights there.
Okay, so we had a very nice start and a good southwester. Couldn't quite clear the first buoy before Brenton Reef, so had to take one hitch out to clear the two buoys. And once we were clear of Brenton Reef, we foot off a little bit for speed, just VMG down the course. And actually, the breeze wasn't as strong as anticipated. Lightened up much earlier in the afternoon than I thought, so it got kind of light and we were sailing a little higher than we had wanted. But we continued along jib reaching, I guess really until we hit the stream. Oh, we had that big fog bank coming.
Oh, the big fog bank, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we started, so we were the third start, and I was looking forward to seeing all the boats sail past us, the big beautiful boats.
Yeah.
But then the fog hit, we didn't see them at all. So that was
bogeys
disappointing.
Yeah.
So then after it all blurs together after a while, but we did a lot of jib reaching. Eventually we got the chute up, did a lot of spinnaker running, surfing. And then for a while, we only carry one chute on the boat. And we thought with two people, discretion was the better part of valor, so we took it down one night and went wing and wing during the night, which is really not much slower at all. And then some more jib reaching, some more spinnaker, and light air, sailed in.
On your boat is Sigma 41?
Sigma 41.
Yeah. What vintage is it?
So she was built in '85. It's a production boat built in Britain in the IOR Racer Cruiser days.
Yeah.
She did the Fastnet under the original owner.
First year right out of the box did the Fastnet. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing about your class, right? This one spinnaker thing kind of is mind-blowing for a lot of ways. Boy, how good would it be to have another spinnaker? But you have what you have, right?
Yeah.
And when you go into a race in this class and forced into that kind of setup, how do you sort of develop the ideal sail plan for a race?
Oh, well, that's a good question. And I guess, I got into this because originally John Pauling and I were going to do the Doublehanded 2020 race. And when that fell through, I decided to do the 1-2 last year. And so, of course, single-handing and even double-handing, you don't want to change sails much. Even jibing our boat takes a lot of time, double-handed. So it'd be good to have a backup spinnaker, but it would not be good to have a reaching and a running spinnaker where we have to change between them, because that just won't be worth the time, I think. And what I did after the 1-2 is we just have a 125 Genoa and a heavy weather jib, and a storm jib, of course, but set on a head furl, foil, and changing one of those double-handed or single-handed would really be a nightmare, I think. So this year I had built what we're calling a Solent, which sets free-flying inside the headstay on a roller furler. So now I can pull that up, roll up the Genoa, roll out the Solent, and then reverse as needed.
Yeah.
So, but our boat is a fractional rig, a big mainsail, which works really well, pretty small headsails, and then the main, there are 3 different reefs I use all the time, so it's easy to reef and unreef.
Yeah, the reefing is your mode change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of obviously the high end of the short-handed sailing world where everything's on furlers, and it really changes the game, right? I mean, so is an older boat like Sigma 41? Would it be easy to modify it for more of a furling headsail inventory, which you've sort of done?
Yeah, I guess I've done that. We had to build a special tack fitting and reinforce that. I think, that's a different game with lots of different sails.
At that point, you might as well go get it.
And asymmetric spinnakers. I looked into getting a Code Zero or something also, but she's a pretty boat and we cruise her a lot. I don't want to mess her up by putting an ugly sprit out the bow or something like that.
Yeah.
I think at that point you go to a different boat.
Yeah. You use what you got. Yeah, for sure. So as a class winner and obviously somebody who's very experienced with the wing-on-wing technique.
Not so experienced.
Well, I'm sure you used quite a bit of it right this race, right? What would be some good tips for those out there in terms of sailing in the kind of sea state that you were in that setup, wing on wing?
Well, the way I'd go wing and wing is set up the spinnaker pole with a 4-guy topping lift and after guy to the pole and put the pole in position, and then I've already run the jib sheet through the end of the pole, so then once the pole's positioned you can just ease the leeward sheet, pull in the weather sheet to get it out there. Then when you want to stop the wing on wing, you let the weather sheet go, pull in the leeward sheet. So that seems like a secure way to handle it. We have an aluminum pole which is quite heavy, so you don't want that slamming around. And the boat's quite stable, wing and wing, and if you round up with the Genoa backs, but that's not any big deal, really. It's not like a round up with a spinnaker. So that's a comfortable way to go.
And how about driving to that setup in that kind of sea state? What's the good technique? Experience, other than experience. Right?
Well, I think the same as sailing with a spinnaker, really, except it's a little bit less delicate. And we actually had our autopilot steer almost the whole time. We didn't steer much at all, and we had the spinnaker up in 30 true, and the autopilot was handling that, which I was very pleased by. Because, double handing, you only have one person on deck much of the time. You have to navigate, you have to trim sails, so you really can't steer all that much.
Yeah. We should probably pause there. Who was this other individual with you on the boat, right?
Yeah, my doubles partner is a fellow named John Pauling. So I grew up in Los Angeles. My wife grew up in San Francisco Bay Area. John grew up with my wife, Susie Klein. We both at Richmond Yacht Club. And John was Susie's crew in college for a while. John crewed for Susie's father in a 40-foot IOR race boat back in the day. Sails with Susie's brother in a Santana 22 nowadays. And he has 2 daughters, same age as our 2 sons. So we did the 2004 race in this boat with our 2 sons and 6 people total. And then John and his elder daughter sailed back from Bermuda to Padenarum with us. The next summer we sailed across the Atlantic, and John and his daughter Marissa sailed with us from Padenarum to the Azores where they had to get off. So we've sailed together a lot, and he's done a lot of Pacific Cup races to Hawaii. He double-handed with his father. He's a naval architect professionally. He's supremely confident, supremely calm. We get along great.
You've done quite a few miles on this boat then, I'm assuming.
We have. Over 20 years now, 18 years, I guess.
Could you sail to Bermuda with your eyes closed on the autopilot on, you think?
Well, I think a lookout is important.
Really get that aside, right?
Yeah. No,
it's amazing, but how you just get to know every little nuance of a boat like that, right? And behaviors.
That's a nice thing. And also, I've changed little rigging things over the last 5 years, which I wish I'd done 10 years earlier. But when you get to know a boat really well, it's sort of amazing. Sailing is like this. You can always learn new things, get new ideas, and make little improvements. And so I'm appreciating that.
What would be some of those improvements?
Well, one thing is we have running backstays on this fractional rig.
Yeah.
So for many years, when I let the leeward one go forward, I would go forward and I had a line at the chain plate I'd use to tie it down. So I got the bright idea, which is not original at all, other boats do this, to just have the tail of the runner be long enough so it goes to a block at the chain plate and then up to the runner itself, so it's an endless line. So from the cockpit you can pull it forward, then you have that little gem cleat, you can let it go, pull the runner back. It's so stupid I didn't do it long ago.
What else?
Oh, I don't know.
Try to think if you were to provide some other ideas and tips for others with, again, sort of these production boats like this that, to turn boats like this that are not necessarily meant to be double-handed, right? That's the challenge, is to make them turn them into double handers that are efficiently worked from the cockpit, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you want to be totally in the cockpit. So my reefing system is one where I have the main halyard back at the cockpit, partly so I can easily put it on a primary self-tailer to get it up. But then to reef, I lower it, I go up to the mast and hook the tack fitting into a shackle, and the reef outhaul goes to a winch on the mast. So I'm up at the mast doing that, and then going back and forth to the halyard winch. Another thing we did this year was got a, I guess called Tides Marine plastic luff track, which reduces the friction a lot.
Yeah.
Because, my mainsail weighs something over 90 pounds, and it's tough to get it up and slide down. And I'm reefing and unreefing pretty often. So that's another, one of these many little improvements to the boat.
Yeah. Between yourself and your co-skipper, how do you allocate? Do you sail it much like single-handed, just opposite watches, or are you a lot more integrated?
So I think we're more integrated, and that was something I found interesting in the 1-2. I think prior to like the early 90s, I did a lot of offshore racing on big crude boats, and there's always this question: if you want to jibe or change the sail, does the watch on deck do it, or do you get the other guys up? Because it's important to have your sleep too and be well rested. So in the 1-2, the way I did it on the single-handed leg, I never slept more than 20 minutes at a time. I just wake up for 1 or 2 minutes, make sure everything was cool, go back to sleep for another 20. But then if I needed a reef or unreef, I just do it, no doubt. Double-handed, there's this question: I could still do it alone, but I can do it more efficiently with my partner. But it's important to let him get some rest too.
Yeah.
So there are these situations where we go too long before jibing or something because that not playing that tension right. So we sort of kept watches. They were not regular. We just played it completely by ear, depending on the situation, who was more tired. And we almost always had both people on deck for any maneuver.
Yeah.
But that's, one of the challenges of the game. You're continually trying to optimize.
Making the boat easy to sail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sailing it with a partner, so we're a little bit specialized, and he's done most of the foredeck work, and I've stayed in the cockpit more. So, when you get to know one role a little bit better, do it more
Take
efficiently.
that responsibility. Yeah. Relative to those in your fleet, were you sailing everybody technically, or do you sail your own race and see where the corrections play out in this race?
Yeah. So a thing that I haven't, it's been frustrating to me, is back in the old days when I did race, we had a daily roll call, and that's how you knew where people are.
Right.
That no longer exists. And I have not have things set up right to get the YB tracker data. So I've never had that available. So all I have available is AIS, and I can never see a race boat more than maybe 10 miles away.
Yeah.
So I just have this bubble of 10-mile radius, and that's what I know. And in fact, during this race, few, if any, boats in our class were ever in that bubble after the start.
Where is everybody? Yeah.
So I would see, a great thing here was there's so many boats in the fleet that I could keep track of it. And so one morning, I was looking at the plotter and came on deck and said to John, I've got good news and I've got bad news, and it's the same news. Aleutian is 8 miles to leeward of us. They're passing us. And it's bad news because we rate a little bit faster than they do. But it's great news that we're in the same patch of water as Stan and Sally.
I can't tell you how many people have said that. I once, it's like, what's the same thing as one design racing or any other racing? Well, I'm in the same corner as so-and-so, so
Right.
I got to be doing something right. Yeah. And then next thing you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's frustrating. I've got to get the tracker business working out because that's a big liability.
Yeah.
But so I more or less, sort of sail VMG, just like any other kind of race, stay on the favored tack and not deviate very far from whatever's the optimal tack for the situation. You got to have a really good reason to go far off course, I think.
Yeah. Someone said there's, I forget who said it recently, you better have a good reason to tack or jibe as well.
Yeah. But you also need a good reason to not tack or jibe.
Yeah,
So
there is
you
the
can look at
corollary,
that
right?
both
Yeah.
ways. So sometimes, like the last jibe with the expected veer, I knew we wanted to go to the right corner and then jibe over. And it's actually a pretty complicated mathematical problem to figure out exactly what's the optimal course, when to jibe, and we went too far, I think. I'm not positive, but I think so.
Your gut tells you went too far, and I mean, how far do you think you went? Or I mean, how does quote that X far? What does that equate to? You think when you really try to do the math, other than letting it
How
nag
much
at
time
you
we
for a while?
lost?
Yeah.
No, I don't know that. I would sort of guess, one way you might think it's optimal to jibe in such a way such that you end up exactly on the ley line, and as the wind veers and veers and veers, you end up right at the finish. But I'm not sure that's optimal. I think it could actually be optimal to overstand, because on the starboard leg, you still have better VMG toward the destination. And then, it's just like going upwind and say a right-hand shift. It could be optimal to overstand and then come reaching in fast to the mark. I think it's a complicated problem depending on exactly how fast the wind is shifting, exactly what your polars look like. So I don't know that we were wrong, but I have the feeling we were, because we ended up, after we jibed, we dropped the chute pretty soon. So that seems like we'd gone too far to the corner.
Did you know it at the time?
Yeah. But so we lost division by around 4 or 5 hours, and I don't think we lost that much there.
Cumulative. Yeah, that just contributed to the pain a little bit, I suppose. Yeah. What would you, I mean, for people that want to get into double handing, into a style of this kind of race, what would be your recommendation as an entry point and sort of the first steps to go into it?
Well, I guess there are many different things. It's often said the best boat for a voyage is the boat you have. So don't let whatever you have prevent you from doing something if you want to. I would say it's important to have a lot of experience so you actually know what you're up against at sea and are not too terrified by that.
Is there an inroad, I guess what I'm, to
races
or to getting on some of these boats, right? When you have big boats with a lot of crews, you can always be slotted somewhere. But if you wanted to get into double-handed racing, you got to know somebody, and then you want somebody who's that opposite experience. But how does somebody say, I want to go and get that experience when there's only, you got 2 people on the boat?
Yeah. So my wife and I did the Whalers race, which is a 105-mile race, a couple of weekends ago, because there's this new double-handed return, single or double-handed return race starting Sunday. And originally the plan was she and I were going to do that together. And so she suggested we do the Whalers race as a tune-up, which is a brilliant idea. And she really, really liked it. It's the first time we've raced double-handed. We've done some overnight passages double-handed. But I think it opened her eyes to really how hard it is to race double-handed, just physically, and how much there is to do. And she was saying she loved it because as a girl sailing on a crewed boat, she'd never get to do anything because the guys would all do it first. Yeah. Whereas double-handed, there's too much to do, so she got to do everything she wanted. But she's had a neurological problem and decided 5 days of this was really not a smart thing to be doing. Yeah. And John was happy to race back, so that all worked out. But so one point is this new race has been created. I think largely motivated by Peter Becker, who did the 1-2 last year. It's his first shorthanded racing as well, and he fell in love with it. And so he said, like, there are all these boats here, they all have to get back. Let's make an opportunity for people to try shorthanded sailing.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea to open this up. And in the 1-2, Peter and some of the other boats had as their doubles partner for the return young people. There was a Harvard undergrad at the time, Paul Kukler, who did this race on a bigger crude boat. There was, I'm forgetting their names, but a woman who sailed with Peter, a woman who sailed with a guy on the Class 40s. So there were a lot of young women and men wanting to get into more pro sailing, who were available, eager, talented. So that's a way in. People like Peter really opening up opportunities.
Find the right people. I suppose that's the thing. Yeah. Find the
Yeah.
connections and work hard to get in there and figure it out. Yeah. How many of these races have you done?
I think I've done 4 Newport Bermudas. 78, I graduated from college. One of my college roommates is Russell Long, son of Huey Long, who owned a series of Ondines.
Yep.
So after graduation, I got aboard Ondine, raced to Bermuda, sailed the boat through the Panama Canal to Hawaii for a Clipper Cup, then back to California, where I got off to race 470s with Russell. Then I did it on another Ondine in, I think, 86 or so. And then I did in 2004 on Reveille with my family, and 2022.
That's amazing.
So
Is it so? This would be your first. So let's keep saying it. The first downwind version of this race.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So did that make it? Would you rank it as one of your best? Not best, but most enjoyable.
Yeah. So I'm a California sailor who thought offshore races are supposed to be downwind to somewhere warm.
This felt
Bermuda is
felt a
somewhere
little-
warm and beautiful to
Yeah.
arrive, but it's usually upwind. So this is an improvement.
This felt warm. Or, I mean, it felt more home here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you for your time, and good luck on the race getting back.
Thank you.
What's the goal? Win it?
No, just have a good time.
Good time.
But we have a boat that seems to be it's quite a strong reacher to our rating, and so the Bermuda race and Bermuda return, I think, are pretty good for us, as long as it's not conditions that favor the more modern fast boats.
I know it's early yet. It's Thursday. We've got a few days. I don't know what the models say, but you were lucked out by going down in here. Do you have a slog going back the other way, or what's the look right now?
Well, I haven't looked,
So
but
like whenever you go, you gotta go down, right? Yeah.
I was at the weather briefing today, and basically it looks like it's gonna be light air downwind, which
Chill.
yeah.